This was the victim's impact statement I read. Nazba and I weren't friends for decades upon decades, and we won't get the chance to be. I wish for her sons a lifetime full of wonderful memories of a mother that spoke of them constantly. I pray for her sons to remember the way she smiled when she said their names. I owned a carpet and tile cleaning company. I got a phone call one day, and it was Nazba, and she said, "This is going to be the weirdest phone call you get." I just immediately start laughing. I'm like, probably not, because I get a lot of weird ones. And she said, "My ex gave me your number. He had used your services, and his house looks great. So can you come to my house?" And I'm like, that is not even weird. We were just both laughing right off the bat. And we stayed on the phone for an hour, and that was it. We were friends from that day on. She was just so funny and easygoing, and I think that we recognized in each other that friendship right off the bat. I believe that we met for a reason. I believe that I was there to be her friend, even though she was only in my life for a really short time and she was taken way too soon. I could have saved her if I tried harder. I could have saved her. I took this picture.
My dad had the face of somebody that was mean. I would always get that from my friends. But as soon as he started talking, it was just funny, jokes. Wherever he was, there was laughter. His name is Tomás Olivas Ornelas. He was born in Chihuahua, Mexico. We all came here when I was 5. My mom and my dad, my brother, and we've been in Phoenix ever since. My dad worked in construction his whole life, and he would always call during his lunch breaks to tell me the most random joke or to tell me the most random story. Those calls were just the best. I would just brighten up my whole day. My dad didn't call at his normally time. And I think it was like around 1 when I got my brother's call. It was him looking for my dad to see if he had called. Did I know anything about him? He tells me that he had gotten a call from my dad's coworker because he hadn't arrived to work, and there was an accident that involved a truck that looked just like my dad's. I'm like, let me call him and I'll call you back. And I call and he doesn't answer. I call my brother back and I'm like, I'll go check. I'm closer. I'll drive and stop by to the house and see if he stayed home. I get to my dad's house. The truck's not there. And start calling out for him. Dad, are you here? Opening every door in the house. No. The feeling was there. Something's wrong. I just stood there in the living room. I don't know why, but I turned on the TV. The news just came up as soon as I turned on the TV that there was multiple shootings. And the image of the news reporter speaking in the background, I seen my dad's truck. I remember being so scared.
I received a call on May the 31st, 2016, from the detective who was assigned the case. And she informed me that there had been a shooting in Mesa. The Mesa Police Department sent me pictures of the scene, and they also sent me a summary of what happened thus far. Around 3:31 in the morning, the Mesa Police Department receives a 911 call. There's a female on the line. She's obviously distressed and scared.
Help me, help me. He has a rifle in the car and he's going to shoot me. Stop! No, stop.
And then the dispatcher hears shots fired.
I'm 18 and
Mesa police race to the scene. When they arrive there, they have no idea what's going on. They see a white SUV that's partially on a curb and a white truck that is little ways behind it. They see a woman with massive injuries, a lot of blood, and she is very close to the truck. And then the male who was sitting in the truck, and his body was riddled with bullets, and he was alive. But their attention is focused on this man who's standing behind the SUV, who immediately throws down a weapon, a large AR-15.
I can't see his hand. We got one thrown out, the other two are definitely shot. Johnny, you think we got a suspect outstanding? We have two vehicles here, and possible the shooter might be the one we have at gunpoint.
There's no way for the officers to know what this person's going to do next.
I need you to get up. Get up slowly. Put your hands on top of your head.
They don't know if there are other victims, if there are other perpetrators, if there are other weapons, if somebody else is waiting to ambush them.
Come back towards my voice. Back. 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 Get down on your knees right there.
I remember sitting in the car with my mother. She was eating a pear. So I said, Mom, what is that? And nonchalantly, it's a pear. Do you want some? And for whatever reason, sharing a pear at 4 years old with my mother is one of the things I think of a lot. And maybe because it reflects the little moments that you never get to have again. When someone passes, all of those small moments that were otherwise relatively minuscule suddenly become very treasured. I mean, if anyone saw her, the first thing they would notice is how beautiful she was, and then her love for her children. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of photos of my mother. My mom tells me that she's getting married, that she met a man. His name's Chris. I hear my mom's voice and how ecstatic and happy she is. She was hopeful that we would be a complete family again. From the moment that I met him, I was extremely attached to him. He was very charismatic. And I wanted to only see the best in him. My mother only wanted to see the best in him. She was happy. I was happy.
When I met Nazba, she was a stay-at-home mom. She had 3 boys. Nazba had told me that Chris had proposed the first day that they met the first time they saw each other, like ultimately very sweet and romantic. The boys and her husband were her life. But she was very private. She would let tidbits go at a time, not let's sit down and talk for hours about my life. So I just kind of had to gather what I could. And then as we got closer, I start to pick up on some things. You can tell when a friend is texting their spouse and you can feel the irritation. From the tidbits that I've gathered, he was an argumentative person. And then Nazma started to open up to me about Chris is having some problems. You know, Chris is using drugs. Chris has some addiction problems. She would say things like, you know, he's having a bad day. She loved him. I think she wanted him to get better. And I don't think she knew what to do.
It's very chaotic. They don't know who anybody is. Nobody's been identified, and they're trying to figure out what's happening.
For the off-ramp. Are you gloved up? Go ahead and get him. Put your hands on your back. Copy. I'm behind you, Dan. Don't move.
The suspect was arrested on the scene. It turned out that his name is Christopher Glenn Wright. The officers get him to the substation. He becomes very combative, and so they had to tase him.
Are you gonna listen to us? Yes, sir. Yes. You fully understand that what happened here is your fault, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are we done?
Yes, please. I want to go to the room.
They were able to get him under control and take him inside the station. His behavior is very typical of someone who is high on a stimulant. He's saying nonsensical things. Christopher's interview was very disjointed, to say the least. We had to figure out if there was a connection between the two victims. The questions in my mind were, well, what happened here? You know, could this have been a love triangle that sort of culminated in this act of violence? I didn't have a lot to go on at the time. Later that afternoon, I received a call from the detective saying that he had actually confessed to what happened.
Christopher, I'm Detective Van Galder.
How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing okay. I understand that you wanted to speak with somebody. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. No, I will tell you the truth about all things. Everything. And the justification. Start to finish. She needed to die because she was cheating. She was cheating on a man. And she always told me it was him, so I didn't care. And I know that she had a relationship with a Mexican man. I saw a Mexican and her getting into the car. I lost it. Lost it. So I got out my rifle, Daniel Defense 5.56, Mark 18, and I fired probably 3 rounds into her and 3 rounds into the other gentleman.
He accused Tomas of being there to meet Nazba, that he and Nazba were having an affair. He killed them because they deserved it, is what he said.
So you went in with the thought process that you were going to kill this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was my intent because of what's been done to me.
Right.
I hate those. I'll do it again.
He didn't have any remorse or expressed any remorse. He said it himself. I didn't feel anything, and I would do it again.
Mesa, please, how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to get some information on the shooting in Mesa. I just saw it on the news. It looks exactly like my dad's truck, and we're not able to locate my dad.
Okay. Officers are still working on it. I'll have one of the officers give you a call.
Nobody could give me no information. I start Googling hospitals in that area. I call them. We don't have anybody with that name. That's all I kept getting. I called my mom at work. My mom said she was coming over. There was a deep sadness because something inside felt like my dad had already died. That feeling wouldn't go away. Hours went by. Still no phone call. And then I look out the window, I see the detective's car parking in the driveway. I'll never forget my mom's face. She just took a deep breath. Didn't say anything. She just sat there. It took us a long time to decide who was gonna open the door. I don't think any of us wanted to, because deep down we knew what they were gonna say. She asked for us to describe my dad. Characteristics of like any tattoos, scars. When I told her that my dad had a colonoscopy bag on his stomach, and I remember her just looking down and saying, yes, that's him. And then she confirmed that he had died in the hospital.
Over the years, I started to grow apart from Chris. I think it was progressive. There was a period where he lost his job. He had tested positive for marijuana use at his work. And that's when you can tell that Chris was angry about everything. I was an overweight child, and Chris started calling me names and teasing me about that. He would mimic me and mock me. My mother would oftentimes step in. Chris, knock it off. Chris, stop. But over time, she stopped intervening with Chris. Chris became a lot more aggressive. He would smack my younger brother. He would smack me. He would smack my mother. He would grab her by the face and say, kiss me. And if she refused, he would kiss her anyways. And he might smack her until she kissed him. Then maybe grope her or do things like push her over the counter and stuff like that.
In April or May of 2016, right before she passed, Nazba texted me a picture of a badly broken arm. And she said, Chris broke my arm. He slammed it in a door. And I was, are you gonna leave? Can I come get you? And she said, no. Chris is gonna go to rehab. hopefully it'll work this time. I was like, this is severe. This is bad. You know, she confided in me a little bit. She was gonna seek a divorce. And there was a big issue about the rehab asking her not to seek a divorce while he's in rehab because he's not in any state to sign any documents. And I was heartbroken, terrified, scared for her. I said, I am coming to your house. I will pack your bags. I will bring you and the boys to my house. I was begging her to leave. She said, no, I can't. I can't leave the house. I can't. I never heard from her again. That was it.
As with any situation in domestic violence, it's very progressive and slow. I didn't realize that her home was not normal and that it was abusive until I had graduated high school. One of the last days that I saw my mom alive. He's calling me these things, belittling me, and I decided that I had enough of Chris. So I remember walking toward the door so that I can get in my car and leave. That's when I look over my shoulder and I see Chris coming toward me. It happened so fast. I remember him pinning me against the wall and picking me up by my neck. And he smacks me. I felt my body against the wall and being taken off of my feet. The only thought I had was escape. I used my legs to get him off. I kicked him off of me. He stumbles back and I leave. My mom calls me crying. Why did you do that to Chris? I said, I'm tired of Chris treating us this way. I'm tired of Chris controlling us. I'm yelling this to my mom. Chris is awful. Chris is terrible. I genuinely was tired of him. When I came home, my mom's in the car with Chris. Chris didn't really talk to me at all. He refused to engage with me. I come to her side of the car, talking to her. She says she's going to be back later. The entire time, Chris just looked straight ahead, didn't engage with any of us, didn't look our way, just was silent. And then my mom drove off. And they never really did say where they were going. That was the last time I saw her. After that, I went up to my room, I watched some TV on my bed, and then I went to sleep. So I wake up the next day, relatively early in the morning, maybe around 7 or 8. There's some knocking on the front door. I didn't know where my mother and Chris were. My older brother, my younger brother, myself. We go downstairs and there's 2 detectives. And they ask us questions individually, separate from each other. They asked me to describe the relationship between your mother and Chris. They asked, is Chris abusive? Would Chris hurt your mother? I defended Chris. I mentioned that he was just a strict parent and that he wouldn't hurt anybody. I was anticipating my mother and Chris coming home. And as a result, I didn't want any retaliation from Chris. After they spoke with me, she looked at us and said, Chris hurt your mother. really badly, and she didn't make it. And my brothers and I look at each other, kind of confused. And she says, "Your mother's dead." I remember my younger brother wailing, my older brother crying and trying to console my younger brother. And I just remember not being able to accept it, that it had happened. My mother and Chris came home that night. I was asleep, but my brother was awake, and Chris started going around the house, searching bedrooms and pointing flashlights at everybody. What that means to me is that he was pointing his rifle at everybody in the house. My mother was trying to get him to stop, pleading with him. "Chris, stop. Chris, knock it off." And they both left the house again. My mother was intentionally trying to get him out of the house so as not to harm us. She made a lot of sacrifices in her life, and on this day, that was one of them.
Help me. He has a rifle in the car and he's going to shoot me. Stop! Stop! No, stop! We're going to get you started as well. Thank you. I'm going to keep this line open. Okay, I'm going to stand.
It's hard to listen to, knowing that those are the last few words that Nasba ever spoke, and they were in terror. Christopher Wright had killed his wife, basically in the middle of the street. And not only did he shoot her, but Christopher Wright shot someone who he thought was meeting Nasba, his wife. I requested the phone logs for both Nasba and Tomas. And we went through it piece by piece to see if Tomas had ever called Nasba or whether she had ever called him. There was none of that. No indications of that. Nothing. So despite Christopher continuously telling during his confession that Tomas and Nasba were having an affair, there's no indication anywhere that those two knew each other. So what we were trying to do in this case was to dissect the whys more than anything else. Why did Christopher decide to kill his wife on that particular early morning hour, and why he decided to kill Tomas as well? After I was able to review all the evidence, the photos, the reports, and the interview with Christopher Wright, this is what we figured happened in this case. Christopher Wright has been angry. He had been using a lot of drugs. Christopher had marijuana, trazodone, tramadol, and Zoloft in his system. He admitted to buying an 8-volt and basically using it during those just 2 or 3 days, which is incredible. He was facing a divorce that he did not want. Christopher's intent, this is according to him, was to crash the vehicle somehow and kill her. He started driving extremely fast at 120 miles an hour. And what happened is he turned his wheel a little too early, ends up caught on the curb. So when that happens, Nasba sees her chance. She opens the door to leave. Christopher grabs the AR-15, which is sitting in the back seat behind him. Tomas was on his way to work at a construction site. We have no way of knowing what Tomas was thinking, but would have seen that the SUV's on a curb. And I believe that his first thought would have been, this was an accident and maybe somebody's hurt. And he sees a woman open the door and start running towards him. And I imagine him concentrating on her. And she's screaming, my husband has a gun, he's going to shoot. And by then she was almost to safety. Chris comes out of the driver's side and he shoots her full of bullets. And then he immediately turns his gun on Tomas. And at that point, I don't believe that Tomas had a chance at all. Unfortunately for Tomas, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. So it just really struck me hard. The fact that Tomas was pulling up there to help her. This man stopped to help a complete stranger, and he was murdered as well. And that's the scariest part of all.
I hadn't spoken to Nazba for 4 months. Since he broke her arm, and I couldn't get in touch with her anymore. I didn't know where she lived. Couldn't find her address. I couldn't remember her ex-husband's name. Ultimately, he called me. And he said, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Nazba's passed away. And I said, he killed her, didn't he? Blamed myself for a long time because I knew she was in danger. I felt helpless and weak and vulnerable for her. And knowing that I couldn't get to her was terrible. And knowing that I was right was worse.
In this case, we were seeking the death penalty because, for me, it was a premeditated murder. Christopher had taken that AR-15 and had put it in the back seat where he could have easy access to it. So that's the premeditation for me. And what bothered me the most is he was not sorry or remorseful. And in my 21 years at the county attorney's office, there has not been very many people who didn't show any remorse. But Chris pled guilty to avoid the death penalty.
On 5/31/2016, at approximately 5:45 a.m., I was involved in a motor vehicle accident when I noticed my wife was on the phone with what sounded like 911 dispatch. My wife left the vehicle and ran around the hood towards the pickup truck that was stopped to the west of my vehicle. I exited the vehicle using the driver door and approached Nazba and tried to pull her back towards my vehicle by her hair. She continued to talk on the phone to what I assumed was 911 dispatch. And at that time, I returned to my vehicle, got an assault rifle, and fired 3 shots at Nazba and 3 shots at a man later identified as Tomas Olivas Ornelas.
That day at Chris's sentencing, it was really hard. I was mad and hurt, but that's not what I wanted to bring to the courtroom that day. I wanted her there. And I wanted, ultimately, Chris to know that she was there and she would not be forgotten.
I didn't know him at all, but this is the guy that helped my mother. Tomas died being the last kind face that my mother would see. He died being a great man. Right now, I'm finishing 5.5 years of active duty Army service. I am married to the most wonderful and loving woman. She loves her children just as much as my mother loved us. I think she would be proud of all of us. But there's no amount of words that I can put together in a sentence to express how much I miss her, or even just what I would say to her if I had a chance to speak to her again.
This is her. She's beautiful. Her baby boy. Her smile. She looks happy. And he took that away from her. All I could wish was for him to come back. I would give anything for that one phone call to tell him that I love him, that I miss him. He's a hero. He didn't think twice about helping somebody else without even thinking of the consequences. He will forever be my hero. If only more people were like him.
When I was little, I would try to intimidate my dad. He would be on the couch, and I would come up to him and I would flex my muscles like Superman, and I'd say as stern as I could at 4 or 5, I'm made of steel. And he would laugh and punch me in the stomach and knock the wind out of me. I would lay there and gasp. He would taunt me. He would stand over me and repeat my words. Oh, you're made of steel, huh? What happened? What? I thought you were made of steel. And if I got back up and did it again, he would punch me again. As many times as I would stand there, he'd punch me in the gut and knock the wind out of me. What I remember is feeling so defeated that he hadn't backed down. I remember feeling like such a failure that my plan to intimidate him hadn't worked at all. I felt really helpless. The lasting effects of the trauma in my life wouldn't just go away. And so I just forced myself to do the things I needed to do to get here to tell the story. I was the only one who knew my dad's secrets. The stories are horrifying. He did monstrous things. It's so bad. This photo just makes me mad. Harley in the living room, he's got a goat in his lap, and he thought he was so tough. But he was just a jerk a lot of the time. When I was a kid, I'd look at this photo and he looked so intimidating to me. He's big and scary and could come at me at any minute. I look at it now and I think, you know, what an asshole. And I was always hoping that he loved me and didn't want to hurt me. but he was a violent man. I always thought that, well, okay, yeah, I got hit today, but, I'll do better tomorrow.
I couldn't see the future, but I was always naively optimistic.
I was born in Humboldt County in the Redwoods in California on 80 acres of farmland and timberland with my mom and my dad. It's hard for me to remember happy memories with my dad because the scary times were so common and so much more intense. And one of them was when my dad put me in the oven. My memory starts all cramped up in the oven and the door opening. I don't remember getting put in the oven, but I clearly remember being in the oven, crouched up and cramped in there, and the door opening, and my dad being there, and my mom was just standing behind him watching. My mom knew better than to intervene in what my dad was doing.
Get out.
I remember being let out of the oven. My dad believed that children are to be seen and not heard, and he was very serious about it. Like, do I understand that I'm never to speak without being spoken to?
Did you learn your lesson?
He said, the next time you speak without being spoken to, I'm gonna turn it on.
Don't do it again.
And I remember that all so clearly. I was terrified, and I believed that he might cook me in the oven. Well, there's this phrase, I brought you into this world and I'll take you out. And my dad told me that often, and he believed it.
If you don't learn to behave, I will get rid of you once and for all.
If he chose to kill me because I wasn't obeying, that was his right, and he was going to do it. He was trying to rule me through fear.
Get out of here.
And I would go in my room and cry and vow to not be so evil anymore. I thought the problem was with me. As a little kid, I thought he was going to kill me. I believed I might die. So my dad read the Bible a lot, and he believed that if God didn't want him to do something, God wouldn't let him. My dad thought that women need to be beaten, and that was his job. I have this vague, troubling memory of being in my room and reading my books.
What is wrong?
And in those memories, I can hear her crying out.
How many times do I have to tell you?
I'm sorry.
I can hear the blows, just crashes and bangs.
I won't do it again, I promise.
And I wanted to protect my mom.
Why do you make me do this?
Please, Ernie, stop.
So at some point, I had a knife, and I had gone to confront my dad and try to intimidate him with this knife. And things turned. He got very angry, and he took the knife from me, and I ran. I went under the dining room table, and my dad followed me and came right under the table with me. And there was this crazy intensity to him. And he was in my face, ordering me to open my mouth.
Open up! Now!
He stuck the knife in my mouth and told me to close my mouth. He was yelling at me something to the effect of, you come at me with this fucking knife, I'll slit your throat, I'll fucking kill you.
No one is going to threaten me! You understand?
And I could feel the blade touching my tongue. And I remember feeling so afraid. When I think about it, like it it's a shock inside my body just to remember how that felt. And I guess he just stopped. I don't know what happened next. But I do know that as an adult, I don't like to watch other people using kitchen knives. I have, like an irrational fear. I don't know that I ever stood up to him again after that. Like, maybe not for a long time. It was so real, you know? Just years and years after that, I didn't fight back anymore. I'd watched my dad kill my pets when he was angry, and I just learned not to get attached to things. If I had a dog that took a scrap off the table or peed on the rug one too many times, we would go outside and he would have me hold their collar while he shot them in the head. He would walk away and tell me to bury them. And I did that more times than I want to remember. You know, we never had a dog that made it past like 2 or 3 years old. I don't know how I processed that. I didn't want to feel that pain, and I just learned to shut myself off inside. I spent a lot of time in my room when I was a kid. He had a lock on the outside of my door. And I would sit there and fantasize. I would go into these daydreams. On the opposite wall, kind of right next to my bed, there was a door, a tiny little door. And I would tell people in school how my dad had built this little door for me. It was very comforting to know that I had a door and I could leave if I wanted to. I believed it was true until about 10 years ago, I was talking with a friend and telling him stories. And he said, I don't understand why your dad would put a lock in the hallway on your door, but then also provide you a little door to the outside. Where did that door go? I couldn't answer. I didn't know what the other side of the door looked like. It hit me all at once that there was never a door. And that was part of my way of coping. I had imagined that that door was there. I think it was too hard to accept that I was trapped in that house with him. And I needed something. I needed some kind of fantasy, something to believe in, some way out. That was a big part of how I survived. My whole life, my dad was a commercial fisherman and he had a boat. My mom worked with my dad on the fishing boat. And when they would leave to go on fishing trips, they would leave me with my grandparents. So one day, just before lunchtime, my grandparents were in the kitchen listening to the radio. And it was a report that the fishing vessel Femel had capsized in the entrance to the harbor, and that the Coast Guard had pulled one person off of the boat, but it's believed that there's another one on board and they haven't been able to find them.
Let me call down there, see what's going on.
When I heard the radio report that one person had been recovered from the boat, I was immediately hoping that it was my mom. The next thing I remember is walking down a corridor in the Coast Guard. The officer opened the door. Sitting in a chair at a little table was my dad. And I felt this welling, like, oh my God, my mom's dead. But I Like right away, I knew I needed to shove that down. I knew I couldn't express to him that I was so disappointed that it was him that made it. He started to tell me his version of what had happened that day. The initial story was that he and my mom were just out there in their boat and a big wave flipped them upside down and the water had washed through and trapped my mom inside and pushed him out. You know, I was 6, so I just believed him. He was my dad. And I said, come on, Dad, let's go home. So we went home. I rode home with my dad, and he didn't hug me or comfort me. We never talked about her or that her life was over. There's never been an investigation into any kind of wrongful death. My mom's death was ruled an accidental drowning. The boat was never recovered. Her body was never recovered. And I do remember being completely preoccupied with the horror of she's gone and now I have to face him. The search continues for missing woman. According to a Coast Guard spokesman, one diver searched 90% of the Female and did not find the woman. The only section not searched was the boat's engine room, he said, indicating that it was not likely she would be inside. 30 years later, I was looking through old photo albums, and I had the newspaper clippings. One of these newspaper articles said that the engine room was locked. I read that, and it hit me how odd that seemed, because nobody locks their engine room. I told my grandmother right then, I think, I'd like to go down to the Coast Guard while I'm here in town and ask them, if they have any more information about what happened. And she dropped whatever was in her hands, and she looked so disturbed, and she said, "Oh, Sammy, you think he killed her, and now you're going to open all this up and create all this drama or this problem." I hadn't said that I thought he killed her. I realized when she said that she thought he killed her and had all this time just gone along with the story of the accident. That was the day that I realized that I'd been lied to. I think my dad killed my mom because he found out that she had been saving up money to leave. And he didn't want her to leave, and he wanted that money. It was within 6 months or so. He had purchased a new boat with her money and named it the Claire Louise after her. When I was about 10, my dad got married to his girlfriend. Her name was Nina. I liked her. They were happy together, but within a month of them getting married, things started to not be so great. So one day he had beaten her up really badly, and Nina must have reported this to the police because they came and picked my dad up in the middle of the night and arrested him. My grandparents would bring me up to visit my dad in jail. The bulk of every visit was him talking to me on the phone. And the only thing he wanted to talk about was his story that he wanted me to practice. His story was that he was innocently driving and she became irrational and angry and she grabbed the steering wheel and tried to wreck the truck and kill us. And he heroically maybe hit her once to try to save our lives, and she's blowing it out of proportion. What are you going to say? He programmed me and drove it into me and made me repeat it back to him. I was expected to testify on his behalf that it was all Nina's fault and he was the innocent victim. I felt threatened. It's not like I had a choice. And he got found not guilty on all 6 counts. After he got found not guilty, it empowered him to be so brazen and so bold. He definitely went around bragging to people in town that he could get away with whatever he wanted, and nobody can stop him. So my dad would often tell me stuff I didn't need to hear. I was 15 and had my driver's permit, and I was supposed to be learning how to drive a car, but instead he had other lessons.
Had a lot of good times in here. Soon you will too.
Part of his idea of being a dad or training me to be a man was to tell me a lot of stories of women that he date raped. Women that he would get alone in his car, and then he would overpower them. He didn't call it that, you know, because he was telling me, look, girls want you to do this stuff, and, you know, they might say no, but you just, you know, you can't be a sissy. You gotta, you know, force them.
Give me your arm.
And he was showing me how to do it. So he said, so let's say you're sitting here, right? And you're my date. And he's like, so if you're making out with a girl and you get this far, you don't have to stop. And that's, you know, pretty soon they get into it, you know, so that's how you do it.
They all want it. So give it to them, right?
I wasn't interested in learning how to do that kind of thing, but he wanted to hear me be excited about raping women so it would prove that I wasn't gay.
I don't think I want to do it like that.
And he flipped out. He went on a rampage. He was going to beat the gay out of me. He would say, Sammy, you're never going to have a woman that loves you because you don't have the guts to hit them. And women need to be beat up and retrained.
You're just gonna let them walk right all over you?
And you're too much of a sissy to do it. I don't remember how that all ended up, but I got hit a lot that day. I would fantasize about escaping, but I didn't know how to make my own choices. So the world seemed scary. And so I never had the courage to leave. My dad spent a lot of time at the bars when I was a teenager. And Patty was one of the women who was often at the bar, and he would bring her out for an evening or a couple of nights. I liked Patty. She was nice. This one particular time, I was in my room, but I could hear him hitting her. Please stop. And her crying out in pain.
Sam!
He brought her out and showed me the bruises all over her. Her face was black and blue. Her arms were black and blue. And he said, you know, I can't let her go because if she goes to the police, then, you know, that would be another trial and possible jail time.
What the hell am I supposed to do?
Just let me go home, please.
Shut up!
And she swore, no, I won't go to the police. And he said, well, you know, I'm not going to take that chance. And, you know, I don't believe you. So you're going to stay here until you heal. And I could see that she was frightened by that. Dad said, well, I've got to go check on the boat. What are we going to do with her? And he couldn't leave her there alone, and he couldn't bring her with us.
What about the old tree?
I didn't want him to entertain having to kill her. And so I came up with the stump as an option. There was an old growth stump behind the house, a big redwood stump, like 8 or 10 feet tall and 6 or 8 feet across at the top with a hollow center. And I went down in the hole and I put water in jugs so she'd have water to drink. And he let me take down a Ziploc bag of dog food so she'd have something to eat. And so I put that stuff down there with a blanket or two. It didn't seem that bad to me.
It'll be okay.
But I could tell that it was really, really frightening for Patty. She did not want to climb down in there. When I talk about the tree stump now, I see it on people's faces, that it's really scary. And it's alarming that to people that I would say, well, let's put her in this tree stump. But at the time, to me, it seemed like a great solution. She would be safe all day, and my dad would leave her alone. At that time, if I could have skipped spending the day with my dad and just spent the day in the bottom of a tree stump, I would have felt lucky. And so I convinced her, like, you just go down the ladder and you'll be safe here. And so she went down the ladder and we went into town. And we came back like 6 or 8 hours later and put the ladder back down in so she could climb out. We did that for like a month, almost every day, putting her in the stump, pulling the ladder out. And at the end of the day, we'd get her out and she would come in the house and make dinner and do the dishes, and he would take her in the bedroom and they'd have sex. And then the next morning we'd walk her out to the stump until the one day that she tried to escape. So one day my dad wanted me to get some chores done before we let Patty out for dinner. And so I brought the trash out from the kitchen and I heard something in the bushes behind me. And there was Patty, dirt all over her hands and face. She had dug her way out of the stump. When she saw me, she said, "Please let me go. Please let me escape." And I felt so paranoid. Like, was this a test? And I can't tell if my dad's watching me right now to see what I do. I thought if I try to help her right now, like, he's going to see that as a complete betrayal. And all those times that he threatened to kill me, well, this would be the time when he would find it justified. All my life, I've regretted this, but I thought the safest thing for me was to call out to my dad.
Dad?
When I did that, she just sunk. And when he came out, I could see that he was surprised. He had no idea that she had gotten out. And I realized in that moment, like, oh my God, he hadn't even been watching. I could have said, yeah, go, run that way. I felt so ashamed and foolish. I had been too fearful and selfish. I let her down and I let myself down, and he didn't want her in the stump after that.
Get inside.
We both stayed home and she stayed in the house for the next 4 or 5 days. And then he said, well, I think her bruises are all healed up. And we drove her into town and dropped her off at the bar where they had met. Patty never went to the police. She told her friends there what had happened. And they didn't believe her. They thought it was just too crazy. In his own mind, it's reaffirmed that he can get away with whatever he wants. I was 16 years old when my dad met Sandy. I liked Sandy. She was really sweet. They seemed to be having, just a lovely time for a month or so.
I don't believe you.
And then all of a sudden things changed and he was suspicious of her and started beating her.
Trying to protect.
Over the course of about a month, the beatings continued and she's covered with bruises. And then he's showing me, look at these bruises. I can't let her go. I didn't want her to have to go through what Patty went through. I didn't know what to do, but I thought I've got to do something. I've got to stop this. But I didn't know who I could tell. I was acting up at school and my teacher thought there was a problem. So he brought me in and had me sit with the vice principal. And I really, really wanted to tell my chemistry teacher, my dad has a woman that he's holding hostage at home and she needs to be saved. And I was almost there.
Is everything okay at home?
But then the vice principal was being really threatening.
If this behavior doesn't stop, we're going to be talking suspension.
And I just suddenly felt like I can't trust these people, or I can't trust him. What if I tell these people and then they just, call the police, and the police go out to my dad's house, and then I come home and I was afraid of what he'd do to me. And I was still thinking like, he's going to let her go. Like, this is worse than last time, but eventually he's going to let her go. And I don't want to mess it up and get us both killed. So I decided not to tell my teacher what was going on. That was my chance, and I had missed it. I came home, and my dad had Sandy sitting in a chair in the center of the house. He was waiting for me.
What's going on? Look at her.
And he was explaining to me that she wasn't going to get better. She wasn't responsive. And a lot of her skin was turning green. And he said something about, being out of options. And he said, go get the car.
I'll be right out.
I assumed he was going to kill her. And I didn't want to take part in that. But I thought, if I stand here in front of him and say, no, I won't get the car, what if he kills me too? So I went and got the car, and I pulled it around back. And he came out with her wrapped up in a blanket, and he told me to open the trunk. And he put her in the trunk, and he closed it, and then he had me get a gas can and set it in the back seat. He drove down toward the woods, so we're kind of off the road. I couldn't figure out how to get out of this. I felt so defeated and so horrible, and I didn't know how to stop it. He lifted her out of the trunk, and he picked up this large pestle from a mortar and pestle set, and he said, look away. And so I turned and I looked away. And I heard like a thud. And I heard her exhaling, moaning. He killed her right then. He carried her into the woods, and he laid her in a ditch. We had a pile of used tires, and he put the tires on top of her and dumped the gasoline over it and lit her on fire. Jesus Christ. I'm just kind of hearing myself say all this. Like, I know what happened. I know the narrative, but like, God damn. I mean, I feel dirty. I feel just sick inside thinking about this. And like, of course I should have done something. And why didn't I do something? And, why didn't I stop it? We
came back a few hours later. He had me crawl down in the ditch and check. I was poking around in the ashes and debris, and I uncovered part of her skull, but it wasn't burning anymore. There was nothing really left.
I'm listening to myself, and I sound so disconnected emotionally from any of it. It seems surreal to me that I'm describing such horrific events.
Did you actually see her catch on fire and the tires and everything burning? Yeah, I lit her on fire. Okay. And had me pour the gas and had me light it.
Wow. I don't really remember that now. And I guess I must have, remembered more specifically then, but I just right at the end, I said I lit her on fire. And I don't remember exactly how that happened. But I guess, I would think in this moment, like, I was trying to be as factual as possible and as honest as possible. So that must be what happened. I must have, thrown something in there on fire to light the whole thing. I was standing there in the woods like just feeling in shock. And he turns around and he looks at me and he says, well, there's no way you're keeping this a fucking secret. And he just stared at me. He was just sure that I couldn't be trusted. And at that point, that day, driving away from Sandy's body on fire, I felt like there's no way he could let me live. I always had been afraid that my dad would kill me, but now I had, seen him kill someone. It was different now. I couldn't sleep in my bedroom anymore. He made me sleep on the couch in the living room. And one of the first nights, I woke up, in the middle of the night, and he had the light on.
Dad?
And he was fully dressed, and he had his boots on, and he had the rifle across his lap. And he said, go back to bed. I haven't decided what to do with you yet. It was hard for me to go back to sleep. I focused on trying to convince him that I wouldn't ever tell anybody. In those months that followed, I was so scared. Every day, I was at his mercy. Like he was going to decide whether or not to kill me. And I felt like there was nothing I could really do about it. About a year after he killed Sandy, we were riding in the truck and he told me that he had decided to kill me. He told me, I'm going to take you down into the boat and then I'm going to kill you. And I felt like everything inside of me was screaming, just run, just run. And I thought, what if I trip? What if I fall? And so I was afraid to run, and I just complied and walked with him. And I felt sicker and sicker as we got closer to the boat. I climbed on the boat, and he opened the door to the cabin and had me walk in front of him. And he had a knife in his hand. My heart's pounding and I'm sweating. He was telling me clearly what he was going to do. He was going to find out who I was talking to, and once he had the truth, he was going to kill me.
Who have you told?
He had all these questions, and he kept hitting me in the head when he didn't like my answers. This all went on for 6 hours in the bottom of his boat, and I was having trouble standing. I felt like I'm gonna die. And I decided in that moment, if I'm gonna die brave. So I looked right at him and I said, Dad, I'm the only person who's here with you all the time. And I've submitted to you and I obey you. And if you don't think you can trust me, you can kill me right now if you want to, but I'm not answering any more questions.
I'm done.
And it was the scariest thing to say, but I just stared at him when I said it. And the craziest thing happened. I watched all the anger and the fierceness just drain out of his face. He looked down and he just set the knife down. He wouldn't even look at me. He said, go upstairs, just go. Let's go back to the truck.
Go outside.
He depended on his victims to be afraid and to feel helpless. That's what he exploited. So that was a huge turning point in our relationship. I started to see things differently and start to see that I had some power. We walked up to the truck and he drove me home in silence. And I ended up living with him until I was 23. And it wasn't until I was getting ready to be married that I finally moved out. I moved across the country and I had my family, and I felt so free. I didn't think life could be so good. It was a great feeling. I never spoke about Sandy. I never let myself think about her or what had happened. I blocked it. It wasn't until 2000, I was 29, I was having dreams and seeing her face. I would be walking through the house and I would think I saw her sitting in a chair in the living room. And I'd have to do a double take, and sometimes I was afraid to even check. My heart was just stopping. I had to force myself to back up and look. And of course I would look and there's nobody in the living room. But I knew who I was seeing. I kind of thought, am I being haunted? It didn't occur to me that I really needed to face this. I needed to say her name. I needed to tell the story. And it still took me 10 years to come forward. So it was March of 2006. My grandmother called me to tell me that my dad had died. He had a lung disease and a series of strokes. I was immediately filled with a lot of sadness and regret, and I couldn't really put my finger on why. I had reasoned that, I hate him, and the sooner he dies, the better. But in that moment, I felt just this deep pain of loss. It was too late for me to be good enough to win his love. I gave his eulogy, and I didn't pretend like he was a righteous man, but I didn't really condemn him either. And I'll never forget, after the end of the eulogy, this little old woman came up to me, and then she smiled and she said, "It's almost like you were talking about a different person." And she gave me a little wink like that. So she knew what kind of man my dad really had been. And I began to realize, I don't really need to keep these secrets, maybe. It was kind of the first crack in that armor.
How long had you known this Sandy Turpin? Probably a couple of months. So, do you know when he murdered her?
After a few years of a lot of misery and a lot of work, I started to realize that I wanted to tell everyone what had happened. I called the Humboldt County Sheriff that day and told them who I was and what I wanted to talk about.
He brought her out to the car and he had me open the trunk and he had her wrapped up in a blanket.
I showed the sheriff on a map where to find the stump that Patty had been held captive in, and circled on the map about where I thought Sandy's body was.
Your dad came to you and said that he wanted you to go and help him. Is that correct? I think she was just dying, and he didn't feel like she was going to heal, and of course he kept beating her, which didn't help. So he eventually came to the decision that he was going to kill her. And so I went along with him because I was too afraid not to.
They asked me to do a polygraph test, and I agreed to do that too. I had decided to just, completely cooperate. Once they found Sandy's teeth, and once they found a way into the stump and found the water jugs and the blankets that had been in there for Patty, then that detective called me and we had kind of a different conversation. They had been considering me as a possible suspect, but the office was overwhelmed with calls from people who had known my dad and knew me across the board. Every person that called knew that my dad was kind of a monster.
And this isn't the first time his name came up in a homicide. anyone who's been around for a while knows your dad's history. I still feel regret for not coming forward sooner. My father had passed away before he could be tried. But shortly after I came forward in 2009, I had a dream. I was in the house with my dad and Sandy, and I grabbed her and I started walking her toward the front door. And my dad was objecting, and I told him to shut up. And I opened the door and pushed her out and walked her down to the sidewalk and just told her, go, just get out of here. And then I woke up. I had never been able to help Sandy in real life, but I felt like I was able to help her in that dream. And I was able to set her free. And that's when I felt like I set myself free as well.
On Christmas Day 2019, Kevin Bacon's family reported him missing. This was a 25-year-old hairdresser from Swartz Creek, Michigan, a Flint suburb, about 9 miles west of the city. He aspired to become a famous Hollywood stylist, but his dreams were cut short on Christmas Eve. Police finally found Kevin in the waning hours of December 27th, but the gruesome scene was horrific. Mark Latunsky answered the door for the police shirtless, wearing only a leather kilt. He didn't fight, and he didn't argue. He invited them in and told them to go ahead and take a look around. What they found in a hidden room in his dingy basement will haunt them forever. Kevin hung there naked and strung up by his ankles. His throat was slit, and his blood drained onto a patch of dirt over an open trapdoor. His genitals were missing, having been removed, fried, and eaten by his captor and murderer, 49-year-old Mark. Kevin was a big dreamer with a big heart. Sadly, bouts with depression, self-harm, and body image issues weighed heavily on his ambitious life. By the fall of 2019, he had hit his lowest point. But it was only about to get worse, because cruel fate and a dating app were about to bring him face-to-face with a killer. Mark Latunsky was a divorced father of 4, with a master's degree in chemistry from Iowa State. He once held a secure, high-paying job, but depression, anxiety, and paranoid schizophrenia kept getting in the way. While his condition was diagnosed and treatable, Mark rarely took his medication. In a 2013 divorce filing, his ex-wife talked about Mark's odd ways of coping. When off his meds, he would watch gory horror movies filled with torture, mutter to himself, and often disappear into the night for hours. He had threatened to get rid of his children's pets, and he refused to shower and shave. One time he told police that he killed himself with the stroke of a pen, while introducing himself as William Gregory Dean. We cannot say if that name holds any significance, but he used it multiple times. Kevin's roommate and best friend, Michelle Myers, told reporters that Kevin had family issues the day he disappeared. It was Christmas Eve and he was supposed to meet them for dinner that night, but someone he did not like was going to be there. In the end, Kevin decided against going. Instead, he logged into a dating app to look for a meeting. We assume he met Mark and left the apartment around 5:00 p.m. His family grew worried when Kevin missed Christmas breakfast. They called the police and helped scour the small community for 3 days. Friends drove down from Flint, and local news stations covered the search. Kevin was not hard to miss either. He was tall, husky, and sported a short purple haircut. Anybody in Swartz Creek could easily pick him out of a crowded room, but 3 days passed without a sign. Then they found his car in the Family Dollar store parking lot about 5 miles away from his apartment. Inside were his clothes, keys, and phone. Police found messages between Kevin and Mark while searching his phone. These conversations included reassurances from Mark that Kevin would be completely safe with him. But lying was the least of Mark's sins. Since he was already in the system, it was not hard to track him down. 3 days after Kevin disappeared, they showed up at the killer's house, an ominous place out in the middle of nowhere, 20 miles from the nearest town. But what happened between 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve, when Kevin left the apartment, and the late evening of December 27th, when police arrived at Mark S. home? The following is Mark's account of the event given during an interrogation. Mark and Kevin met in the Family Dollar parking lot, where police found Kevin's car. Kevin allegedly described a fantasy he wanted Mark to help him carry out. He stripped naked and put on a blindfold and earmuffs. He allowed Mark to bind him with ankle and wrist restraints before putting him in the back of his van. They drove back to Mark's home where they had completely consensual relations. Afterward, Kevin mentioned how he toyed with the idea of taking his own life in the past, and the two talked about making his body disappear. They came up with a plan to use Kevin's body. Mark said he would use his bone meal to plant tulips and his intestines to grow peaches and chestnuts. He claims he stabbed Kevin once in the back of the neck, right below the hairline. But the wound did not kill him, so to end his suffering, Mark slit his throat. By the time the police found him hanging in the basement, Mark was using his blood to fertilize his plants, hence why it was dripping on the patch of soil. He also planned on slicing off his muscles and dehydrating them for jerky. Days after Kevin's death, the Postal Service intercepted a package en route to Mark's house containing a dehydrator. You might be wondering if this was something he had done before. As it turned out, it was. Kevin was not the first man held captive in Mark's basement. He was not the second either. Mark had already done this routine. He just had never killed anyone. 48-year-old James Carlson called emergency services less than 3 months earlier, claiming someone kidnapped and held him captive in their basement. In his call, he said he met a man. They talked for a bit, then went out to his car. He remembers drinking a soda, then waking up in the man's basement. James said he had been tied up, but freed himself with a butcher's knife. He stole Mark's car keys and ran 3 miles down the road, where state troopers found him 10 minutes later. 6 weeks later, another man who remains unnamed fled Mark's home wearing the leather kilt, the one Mark wore when he answered the door for the police on December 27th. This second victim called for help as he ran, saying he was trying to get away from a man who had tied him up in the basement. Mark was allegedly hot on his trail, but the man made it safely to a neighbor's house. He pleaded with the neighbor to give him an address he could relay to the authorities. A state trooper arrived, but Mark claimed he was only chasing the man because the kilt was expensive, and he got it back. In 2020, James filed a lawsuit against Mark, telling a more detailed version of his story. He had apparently taken a bus from New York to Michigan to meet Mark, but Mark chained him in the basement when he got there and held him captive. Mark's public defender initially entered an insanity plea on his client's behalf. Although a judge deemed Mark unfit to stand trial, the court overruled the decision. Months after his arrest, guards found Mark passed out in his jail cell during a routine check. Since arriving at the county jail, he had been refusing to eat, and the guards had to use smelling salts to jolt him awake. In October 2022, Mark pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Elisa Allen was resting in her apartment, looking out the window, when suddenly she spotted a tall, naked man bolting from her friend Tanisha's place next door. It was not just any strange man. This man was covered in blood. Elisa, obviously frightened, called the police straight away and raced over to Tanisha's apartment. What she walked into was a horrific scene. There was 21-year-old Tanisha lying in a pool of blood in her bedroom. It was clear something terrible had occurred. It took no time at all for police to catch up to the naked man Elisa saw running down the street. When they approached, he snarled and barked like a dog. It was only later that they got his name. Big Lurch, born Antron Singleton, was a giant in the rap music scene, standing at a towering 6 feet 6 inches. He was known for a horrorcore style, mixing rap with horror themes. He had a standard childhood growing up in East Dallas, Texas. Even as a kid, there was something different about him. He was not just playing in the backyard. He was busy writing poetry. Fast forward to his high school years, and Big Lurch was not average. He was taller, but there was more to him than height. While most teens were getting into usual high school activities, Lurch was diving deep into the hip-hop scene. It was like he found his calling. But he was not just rhyming about usual topics. He was weaving in lyrics about serial killers, vampires, and cannibalism. The crowds were into it. Before things went wrong, Big Lurch was on the rise, collaborating with big names and dropping minor hits. Then life threw a curve. It was his 24th birthday, and a drunk driver changed everything. After getting rear-ended in the crash, Big Lurch ended up with a broken neck and a new addiction to hallucinogenic narcotics. It seemed to be the only thing that could take his pain away. As his addiction spiraled, his music started getting darker, and so did his life. The drugs were turning his lyrics into hallucinations. All the darkness he rapped about was swirling around him. It came to life in his dreams. He was riding the high for days, barely eating and sleeping. It was obvious he was headed for rock bottom fast, but nothing could prepare anyone for what happened next. On a sunny afternoon in 2002, things took a turn for the surreal. Lurch was in Los Angeles recording an album. The night before Tanisha's body was found, the 26-year-old Lurch was in her apartment using narcotics with her boyfriend. They knew each other from the music business. What exactly happened that night depends on who you talk to. Some say Lurch asked everyone to leave except Tanisha. Others say she was not even there that night and was at a friend's place. Everyone agrees on one thing. The next afternoon, Big Lurch did the unthinkable. Tanisha dreamed of being a model. Friends told reporters she was beautiful inside and out. No matter what was going on in her life, she knew how to keep smiling. Then this man took away her smile forever. The autopsy revealed more. Tanisha's chest was ripped open. Lurch pulled out her right lung, and worse, he chewed it up and ate it. Teeth marks were also on her face. A 3-inch blade was buried in her shoulder. When cops found her killer a few blocks away, he was out of it, staring at the sky, covered in evidence. It was like a scene from a horror film, like something straight out of his lyrics, especially because Tanisha's flesh and blood was found in his mouth and stomach. Fast forward to the trial. It was a media frenzy. Big Lurch pleaded insanity. The last thing he remembered was the drugs. The next thing he knew, he was in jail. He claimed someone set him up, but the jury did not accept it. He received 2 life sentences. His album, It's All Bad, dropped after his arrest. Knowing what we know now, one of the tracks is eerie. The song I Did It To You is like he was giving a prediction of his future. He raps about Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, and says he is going to school because murder is a hobby. Then he says he is like a vampire, fresh meat, he cannot pass it. It was like he was hinting at his own dark path, even before the tragedy. Issa Sagawa never thought he was much to look at. He definitely did not think he could attract the kind of beautiful women that he craved. When I say craved, I do not mean romantically. I mean he wanted to consume them, eat them. His favorite seasons were spring and summer when arms and thighs were exposed. He turned into a hungry dog in a butcher shop. When he was as young as 6 years old, he was reading Hansel and Gretel over and over, fantasizing about sinking his teeth into his classmates' legs. At one point, he tried to get help to curb his twisted desires, but no therapist could get through to the future cannibal of Kobe, Japan. In 1981, he was studying literature at the Sorbonne in Paris and renting a flat in an upscale suburb outside the city. While crime ran rampant in the surrounding areas, the only blood spilled in his affluent neighborhood came from paper cuts and the occasional nosebleed. But that did not mean there were not monsters afoot. Issei lived there for several years, biding his time until he found the perfect woman. Then one day, she walked into his literature class. Renee Hartevelt was a 25-year-old Dutch student and a natural beauty, exactly the type he desired. She was an intellectual who valued the inner mind over the outer appearance. While she may not have been physically attracted to him, their mutual appreciation for culture and literature drew her to him. As time went by, the two became close friends. The more he learned about her, the more obsessed he became until he could think of nothing else but consuming her. She spoke English, French, and German, a fact he leveraged to get her alone. He told her he was fond of German poetry and wanted to read it in its original language. She agreed to tutor him alone. One night while Renee sat comfortably on the floor reading, Issei crept to a cabinet to get his .22 caliber firearm. He pressed the stock into his shoulder, took aim at the back of her head, and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. It must have jammed, or maybe he... They walked over to the suitcases, pulled them out of the bush, and undid the latches. Who knows what they expected to find? Money, drugs, maybe guns. But what they actually saw was far worse than anything they would have imagined. It did not take long for officers to track Issei down, because there were not too many Japanese men hauling luggage into the park that night. The cab driver remembered picking up a man fitting that description and pointed police toward his apartment building. From there, everything fell into place quickly, mainly because the man liked to talk. He really opened up to them. He did not so much confess as explain that he did not really want to kill her, he just wanted to eat her. If he could have eaten her living flesh, he would have done it. But as it was, He promised he would never kill and eat anyone ever again. No one was buying it. They set out to learn more about this man they were dealing with. When they were digging into his past, it led them to a former psychiatrist who informed them that this was not his first incident. When he was 23, he had put on a monster mask and broke into an apartment in Tokyo. He tried to assault a young German girl, but she quickly overpowered him. When the cops arrived, he confessed to an attempted sexual assault instead of his true intentions. To eat her because he did not think that would go over so well. He was not behind bars for long. His father was a wealthy businessman and he paid the German woman to drop the charges. Once again, when he was in jail in France, his father was ready to get him a legal team to get him out of trouble. While the words famous and infamous have similar meanings, the difference comes from the reason why. Famous people are known for positive reasons. Infamous people are usually bad. These are serial killers, ruthless dictators, and cannibals. Issei refused to be lumped in with the bad people, the other patients in the asylum with him. He spent most of his time in the asylum alone, creating his graphic novel. In the Fog, it was supposed to be fiction, but it was about a man who killed a woman, assaulted her corpse, and ate her body parts. Obviously, everyone assumed it was a memoir, and it became a bestseller and turned him into something of a celebrity. Nearly 2 years after his arrest, the judge handed down his verdict: insane. Too insane for trial. So he dropped the charges and decided that Issei should spend the rest of his days in an asylum for the criminally insane. But after a couple of years, France decided that they had had enough of him and he was deported back to Japan. That would prove to be their worst mistake, since the charges had been dropped and he was not formally charged with a crime in Japan. He checked himself out of the hospital on August 12, 1986, and he has been free ever since. The Kobe cannibal turned his status into a cottage industry. He wrote almost 24 more books and screenplays. He gave interviews about what he had done. He painted portraits of nude models. He appeared in an adult film. He even wrote restaurant reviews. But he never killed and ate another woman, as far as anyone knows. We are witnessing here not merely the isolated madness of 3 deranged individuals, but the systemic collapse of the civilization that once knew how to contain them. In every instance, whether it is the chemically imbalanced chemist in Michigan, the drug-addled rapper in Los Angeles, or the wealthy cannibal, intellectual in Paris, we see the same terrifying pattern. The warning signs were flashing red. The institutions were aware, and yet the monster was allowed to roam free until innocent blood was spilled. Look at the facts. Latunsky was known to the police. He had kidnapped men before, yet he was left in his dungeon to butcher Kevin Bacon. Big Lurch was broadcasting his descent into homicidal psychosis through his very lyrics. Yet the culture celebrated his horrorcore authenticity rather than intervening. Most egregiously, Issei Sagawa, a man who explicitly confessed to wanting to eat human flesh, was shielded by the wealth of his father and the incompetence of the French and Japanese legal systems, eventually becoming a media celebrity who wrote restaurant reviews. This is the ultimate inversion of moral order. In the classical world, such behavior was understood as *8, a divine madness, or ruin, that required immediate and severe purgation to save the city-state from pollution. The Greeks understood that the Cyclops, who ate his guests, was the antithesis of civilization, because he rejected *xenia, guest friendship, and divine law. He was a beast to be destroyed, not a patient to be counseled. The Romans, in their more stoic periods, would have viewed such depravity as a cancer, to be excised for the health of the *race publica*. Yet we, in our modern arrogance, believe that therapy, tolerance, and legal technicalities can tame the primal beast. We have replaced the swift sword of justice with the dull butter knife of bureaucracy. When a society reaches a point where a confessed cannibal walks free to star in adult films and write books, it mirrors the final decadent days of the Roman Empire, where the thrill of the gladiator games and the bizarre excesses of emperors like Elagabalus or Nero signaled that the mos maiarum, the way of the ancestors, had been utterly abandoned. We are living in a time where the rights of the creditor to be free, to be understood, and to be rehabilitated supersede the right of the citizen to not be eaten. It is a return to the pre-civilizational chaos described by Thucydides during the Corcyraean Civil War, where words changed their meanings, and monstrous acts were justified by twisted logic. The elite institutions, universities like the Sorbonne, legal systems in France and Japan. The mental health bureaucracy in Michigan failed because they have lost the moral clarity to say that some evils are absolute and must be permanently incapacitated. Instead, they dither, they rationalize, and they release, leaving the common citizen to face the monsters alone in the dark. The lesson from these three horrific tragedies is stark and undeniable. A society that loses its capacity for righteous intolerance of evil will eventually be consumed by it. We are currently operating under a delusion that material prosperity and technological advancement have somehow altered human nature, making the ancient scourges of madness and predation obsolete. They have not. When we dismantle the asylum system as we did in the United States, and when we allow legal technicalities and wealthy connections to override the safety of the community, as seen in the Sagawa case, we are effectively breaking the social contract. The primary purpose of the state is not to provide therapy for the wicked, but to protect the innocent from them. If this pattern continues, where prior offenses are ignored, where bizarre and violent behavior is tolerated as eccentricity or art, and where confessed killers are released on technicalities, we will see an acceleration of social disintegration. Deterrence relies on the certainty of consequences. When that certainty vanishes, the predator is emboldened. We are already seeing the short-term consequences in the erosion of public safety and the rise of random, senseless violence in our cities. The long-term consequence is far more dangerous: the loss of faith in the law itself. If the state refuses to act as the sword of justice, eventually the citizenry will revert to tribalism and vigilantism to protect themselves. Just as the neighbors and victims in these stories were forced to fend for themselves, while the authorities arrived too late or did nothing. We must return to a system that prioritizes the permanent incapacitation of those who have proven they cannot live among us, or we will continue to watch in horror as the nightmares of the past become the headlines